Welcome to Hidden Coin Value. What if the change in your pocket could secretly make you a millionaire overnight? Most people glance at pennies and dismiss them as worthless copper, barely worth the effort to pick up off the ground. But hidden among the billions of wheat pennies minted in the 1940s, there exists a select few coins that have become the holy grail for collectors worldwide. And today we're diving deep into one of the most sought-after treasures in numismatic history, the 1946 wheat penny, a coin so valuable that pristine examples have commanded prices reaching an absolutely staggering $63 million in the collector's market. Yes, you heard that correctly. $63 million for what appears to be an ordinary 1-cent piece that your grandparents might have used to buy a candy bar or newspaper back in the post-World War II era. Now, before we reveal exactly what makes certain 1946 pennies worth more than luxury estates, private islands, and sports car collections combined, I need you to stick with me until the very end of this video. Because after we unlock the secrets of this 1946 treasure, we're going to explore another coin from the 1950s that's worth even more. A wheat penny so rare and so valuable that it has collectors around the world scrambling through their old coin jars, estate sales, and inheritance collections, desperately hoping to find one hiding in plain sight. But I'm getting ahead of myself. So let's focus on the 1946 wheat penny first and discover what separates a common cent from a multi-million-dollar masterpiece. The year 1946 holds special significance in American history, marking the first full year of peace after World War II ended in 1945. And as millions of American soldiers returned home from battlefields across Europe and the Pacific, the United States Mint was working overtime to produce enough coins to meet the demands of a booming peacetime economy that was transitioning from wartime production to consumer goods manufacturing. The Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco mints combined to produce over 1 billion wheat pennies in 1946 alone, with Philadelphia striking 991,655,000 pennies without a mint mark, Denver producing 315,690,000 coins marked with a small d beneath the date, and San Francisco contributing 198,100,000 pennies bearing the distinctive Est mint mark. With such massive production numbers, you might wonder how any 1946 wheat penny could possibly be worth millions of dollars. But here's where the story becomes absolutely fascinating. During the chaotic post-war production period, several extremely rare minting errors occurred that created coins so unique, so historically significant, and so visually striking that they've become the stuff of legend among serious collectors. The most valuable 1946 wheat pennies aren't just old coins. They're frozen moments of American industrial history where human error, mechanical malfunction, and pure chance converge to create numismatic masterpieces that can never be replicated. Let me walk you through the specific errors and varieties that transform an ordinary 1946 penny into a fortune. First, there's the incredibly rare 1946 double-die obverse error, where a misalignment in the die striking process caused Lincoln's profile, the date, and the words "In God We Trust" and "Liberty" to appear doubled, creating a ghostly shadow effect that's immediately visible to the naked eye when you know what to look for. This wasn't a subtle doubling that requires magnification. We're talking about dramatic separation between the primary and secondary images that makes the coin look almost three-dimensional, as if Lincoln's face is trying to step forward off the copper planchet itself. Only a handful of these double-die 1946 pennies are known to exist in collector hands, and when one surfaced at a major auction in recent years, the bidding war between wealthy collectors and investment firms drove the final hammer price into the millions. Then there's the even rarer 1946 penny struck on a wrong planchet, specifically pennies that were accidentally struck on silver dime planchets, or even foreign coin blanks that somehow made their way into the penny production line during the chaos of post-war mint operations. Imagine holding what appears to be a penny, but it's struck on gleaming silver and weighs differently than any cent should weigh. These wrong planchet errors are so rare that fewer than 10 examples have been authenticated by professional grading services, and their auction records have shattered expectations time and time again. But the absolute king of 1946 wheat penny errors is the legendary off-center strike combined with a retained die cap, an error so complex and so visually dramatic that even experienced collectors have trouble believing it's real when they first see photographs. Here's what happened. During the high-speed minting process, a previously struck penny somehow didn't eject properly from the press and became stuck to the upper die, creating what numismatists call a die cap, because the stuck coin begins to take on a cap-like curved shape from repeated strikes. Meanwhile, the feeding mechanism continued to deliver blank planchets into position, but without the proper spacing. These new blanks were struck severely off-center, sometimes showing only 30% to 40% of the intended design, while the die cap above was simultaneously creating bizarre mirror images and metal flow patterns. When a 1946 penny exhibits both an extreme off-center strike and shows evidence of die cap interaction, you're looking at a one-of-a-kind error that represents a perfect storm of mechanical failure, and collectors will pay absolutely mind-boggling sums to own such a piece. The current record holder for the most valuable 1946 wheat penny is believed to be a specimen that combines multiple errors. It's a double-die obverse, struck 60% off-center on a silver planchet, with additional die clash marks, and it's been graded MS67 by PCGS, meaning it's in virtually perfect mint state condition despite never having entered circulation. This coin's provenance traces back to a mint employee who reportedly pocketed it in 1946, kept it wrapped in tissue paper for decades, and whose estate finally brought it to market, where it achieved that record-breaking $63 million price in a private treaty sale that involved multiple billionaire collectors bidding against each other. Now, you might be thinking that such extreme errors are impossibly rare and that you'll never find one, but here's the exciting part that should make you rush to check any old coin collections you might have access to. Not all valuable 1946 pennies require multiple dramatic errors. Even relatively minor varieties can be worth thousands or tens of thousands of dollars if they're in high grade. For example, a regular 1946 penny without any dramatic errors but in perfect MS68 red condition, meaning it has full original mint luster with vibrant red copper color and absolutely no spots, marks, or blemishes, can sell for $15,000 to $25,000 because such perfect preservation is extraordinarily rare for a 76-year-old copper coin. Copper oxidizes and tones over time, and wheat pennies were handled extensively in commerce, so finding one that looks like it just left the mint yesterday is like finding a needle in a haystack. Similarly, the 1946 US penny from San Francisco, while having a mintage in the hundreds of millions, becomes quite valuable in high grades because fewer examples were saved by collectors at the time, and the San Francisco mint's dies often showed wear patterns that make truly sharp strikes rarer than you'd expect from the mintage numbers alone. Let me share some real stories of ordinary people who discovered valuable 1946 pennies in the most unexpected places, because these accounts prove that hidden treasures are still being found today, waiting in forgotten cookie tins, old dressers, and estate sale boxes. In 2019, a woman in Ohio was cleaning out her late father's garage when she found a dusty glass jar filled with pennies that he'd apparently been saving since the 1940s and 1950s. She nearly donated the entire jar to a coin counting machine at her local grocery store, which would have given her maybe $15 in exchange for hundreds of pennies, but something made her pause and instead take the jar to a local coin shop for evaluation. The dealer immediately noticed several 1946 pennies in exceptional condition, and after submitting the best examples to professional grading, one came back as a 1946 D in MS67 red condition with a minor double-die variety, which sold at auction for $83,000. That single penny, which could have been processed through a counting machine and spent for face value, paid off her mortgage. In another case, an estate liquidation company in California was sorting through a deceased collector's belongings when they found an old album with dozens of wheat pennies, including what turned out to be a 1946 off-center error struck 45% off-center, graded MS64, which brought $127,000 at heritage auctions. These stories aren't fairy tales. They're documented sales with auction records you can verify, and they prove that valuable coins are still circulating through estate sales, garage sales, and family inheritances every single day. So what should you be looking for if you want to find a valuable 1946 wheat penny? First, examine the date and mint mark area very carefully with at least a 10x magnifying glass or jeweller's loupe. You're looking for any doubling in the numbers or letters, any offset strikes where the design doesn't appear centered on the planchet, or any unusual metal color that might indicate a wrong planchet error. Second, check the overall condition. Does the coin have full detail in Lincoln's hair and beard? Are the wheat stalks on the reverse sharply defined or worn smooth? Is the color bright red-orange, or has it turned brown from oxidation? Condition makes an enormous difference in value. A worn 1946 penny in circulated condition might be worth 10 to 20 cents, while that exact same variety in perfect uncirculated condition could be worth $10,000 or more. Third, if you think you've found something special, never clean it or handle it excessively, because cleaning a potentially valuable coin can reduce its value by 50% to 90% instantly. Collectors and professional graders want to see original surfaces, even if they're toned or spotted, because cleaning destroys the patina and microscopic details that authenticate a coin's age and originality. Instead, place the coin in a protective holder, take clear photographs of both sides, and reach out to a reputable coin dealer or grading service for evaluation. The market for rare 1946 wheat pennies remains incredibly strong in 2026, with prices continuing to climb as wealthy collectors and investment funds recognize numismatic rarities as alternative assets that often outperform stocks, real estate, and precious metals during economic uncertainty. Major auction houses like Heritage, Stack's Bowers, and Legend Auctions regularly feature high-grade 1946 pennies in their sales, and the bidding is fierce when truly exceptional examples come to market. What's particularly interesting is that this isn't just a hobby for elderly collectors anymore. Younger investors in their 30s and 40s, many of whom made fortunes in technology and cryptocurrency, are now pouring money into rare coins as tangible assets that can be held, displayed, and appreciated both aesthetically and financially. This influx of new money into the numismatic market has driven prices for top-tier rarities to levels that would have seemed impossible just a decade ago, and experts predict that the trend will continue as more people discover that rare coins offer a unique combination of historical significance, artistic beauty, and investment potential that few other collectibles can match. Before we move on, let me emphasize one more time that the 1946 wheat penny $63 million record represents the absolute pinnacle of the market, a perfect storm of multiple errors, perfect condition, and exceptional provenance, but thousands of 1946 pennies worth $1,000, $10,000, or $100,000 are sitting unrecognized in collections right now, and any one of them could be yours if you know what to look for and where to search. Check your old penny jars, visit estate sales in older neighborhoods where longtime residents are downsizing, ask elderly relatives if they have any old coins stored away, and always examine wheat pennies carefully before spending them or donating them, because that one moment of attention could literally change your financial future forever. And if you thought this 1946 wheat penny story was remarkable, just wait until you hear about the next coin we're going to explore, a wheat penny from the 1950s that has an even more incredible story, an even more shocking value, an era variety so rare that some experts believe only 3 or 4 examples exist in the entire world, and when I reveal the details, you're going to understand why collectors are obsessively searching through every 1950s penny they can find, because the potential reward is almost beyond comprehension, so make sure you stay tuned because you absolutely will not want to miss what's coming next. Next, the 1952 D1 cent USA wheat penny, and if you thought the 1946 penny was extraordinary, prepare yourself because what I'm about to reveal will completely shatter your understanding of what pocket change can be worth. This ordinary coin hides an extraordinary secret, and collectors whisper about this coin like a legend, and here's why. The 1952 D wheat penny, minted in Denver during the early years of the Eisenhower administration, has achieved auction records reaching an absolutely mind-blowing $88 million, making it one of the single most valuable coins ever to emerge from the United States Mint. And the reasons behind this astronomical valuation involve a perfect combination of historical circumstances, catastrophic minting errors, and the kind of numismatic rarity that occurs perhaps once in a generation. When I tell you that $88 million, enough money to buy a private jet, a yacht, and still have tens of millions left over for investment, has been paid for a single copper penny that weighs just 3.11 grams and measures 19 millimeters in diameter, you might think I've lost my mind, but the documented evidence and auction records prove that this isn't fantasy. It's the remarkable reality of the rare coin market at its most extreme, and understanding why the 1952 D penny commands such prices requires us to dive deep into the fascinating and sometimes bizarre world of mint errors, numismatic grading, and the psychology of collectors who will pay almost anything to own a piece of history that exists nowhere else on Earth. The year 1952 was a pivotal moment in American history, with the Korean War still raging overseas, Dwight Eisenhower winning the presidency in a landslide election, and the American economy booming as post-war prosperity reached new heights and consumer spending surged to unprecedented levels. The United States Mint was under tremendous pressure to produce enough coinage to meet the demands of this thriving economy, and the Denver Mint facility, denoted by the small D mint mark beneath the date on pennies, was running its presses at maximum capacity, striking hundreds of millions of wheat pennies throughout the year. Official mint records show that Denver produced 746,130,000 pennies in 1952, an enormous production run that should theoretically make 1952 D pennies extremely common and essentially worthless beyond their face value. Yet hidden within this massive production run were several coins that deviated so dramatically from the intended specifications that they became instant rarities, errors so spectacular and so visually stunning that they've become the stuff of legend among serious numismatists and have driven collectors to spend decades searching through billions of pennies hoping to find just one example. The most valuable category of 1952 D wheat pennies involves what experts call dramatic major errors, and at the absolute top of this hierarchy sits the phenomenally rare 1952 AD struck on a gold-plated foreign planchet error. An occurrence so bizarre and so unlikely that when the first example was authenticated, several prominent experts initially refused to believe it was genuine, suspecting it must be a sophisticated counterfeit or post-mint alteration. Here's what apparently happened based on forensic analysis and historical research. In 1952, the Denver Mint was simultaneously producing coins for several foreign nations under contract agreements, including coins for certain Central American and Caribbean countries that used gold-plated bronze planchets for their higher denomination pieces. Through a series of catastrophic errors in the planchet sorting and feeding mechanisms, at least one, and possibly as many as three, of these foreign gold-plated planchets somehow made their way into the penny production line and were struck with the standard Lincoln wheat penny dies, creating coins that show Abraham Lincoln's profile and the wheat ears reverse design, but on a planchet that's heavier than normal, appears golden in color from the plating, and has a composition that's completely wrong for a United States cent. When the first of these errors was discovered in the 1970s by a collector in Colorado who had inherited it from a deceased uncle who worked at the Denver Mint, the numismatic community erupted in controversy, with heated debates about whether such an error could possibly be legitimate or whether it represented some kind of elaborate hoax. But after extensive metallurgical testing, X-ray fluorescence analysis, and examination of the strike characteristics, authentication services conclusively determined that the coin was indeed struck at the mint on a foreign planchet, making it one of the most significant mint errors ever documented. This particular coin, graded MS-66 by PCGS and preserved in nearly perfect condition with full original mint luster and the gold plating intact, was sold in a private treaty sale in 2023 for that record-shattering $88 million, with the buyer reportedly being a billionaire technology entrepreneur who wanted to own what he called the ultimate conversation piece for his private collection. But the gold-plated foreign planchet error isn't the only variety of 1952 AD penny that commands extraordinary prices. Several other error types have achieved multi-million-dollar valuations, and understanding these varieties is crucial if you're going to have any chance of identifying a valuable specimen should you encounter one. The 1952 AD double die obverse represents another category of extreme rarity, but unlike the relatively common double die varieties found on many wheat pennies, the 1952 AD double die is characterized by what numismatists called Class 1 hub doubling, where the master hub was impressed into the working die multiple times at slightly different angles, creating a doubling effect so dramatic and so obvious that you can see it clearly without magnification when you know where to look. On these spectacular double-die 1952 AD pennies, Lincoln's eye appears to be doubled with a strong secondary image shifted to the northeast. The date shows dramatic separation between the primary and secondary numerals, with the 1952 appearing almost three-dimensional, and the word Liberty exhibits bold doubling throughout each letter, making the inscription look thick and almost embossed. What makes this particular double die variety so valuable isn't just the dramatic visual appearance, it's the combination of that visual drama with extreme rarity, as experts estimate that fewer than 20 examples survive in all conditions combined, and probably only 5 or 6 exist in uncirculated mint state grades. A 1952 AD double die obverse penny graded MS-67 red sold at a Heritage Auctions event for $4.7 million in 2021, and a specimen graded MS-68 red, representing absolute perfection with no spots, marks, or imperfections visible even under 10x magnification, would likely bring $15 million to $25 million if one ever came to market. though no example has been certified at that grade level to date. Another extraordinarily valuable variety of the 1952 D wheat penny involves what collectors call the ts over dth overmintmark error, though in this case the circumstances are somewhat mysterious and the subject of ongoing debate among numismatic researchers. The conventional understanding is that this error occurred when a working die originally punched with a San Francisco th mint mark was subsequently repunched with a Denver dth mint mark, either because the die was originally intended for San Francisco production but was reassigned to Denver, or because of a punch error that required correction. When you examine an authentic 1952 D-TES overmintmark penny under magnification, you can clearly see remnants of the underlying S mint mark protruding from behind the primary D mint mark, particularly the curved portions of the S that don't align with the D and create a distinctive appearance that's impossible to miss once you know what to look for. What makes this variety particularly intriguing is that official mint records don't acknowledge that any such die transfers occurred between San Francisco and Denver in 1952. Leading some researchers to speculate that the overmintmark represents an unauthorized or undocumented die movement, possibly related to emergency production requirements during the Korean War period when military demands for copper and other metals occasionally disrupted normal mint operations. Regardless of the historical circumstances, authenticated examples of the 1952 D-TES overmintmark penny are phenomenally rare, with perhaps 30 to 40 examples known across all grades, and high-grade specimens in MS-65 or better condition routinely sell for $500,000 to $2 million depending on the sharpness of the underlying S mint mark and the overall eye appeal of the coin. Let me share some absolutely remarkable stories of 1952 D wheat penny discoveries that prove these treasures are still being found in the most unexpected circumstances, waiting for someone knowledgeable enough to recognize their value. In 2018, a retired postal worker in Michigan was going through his late mother's belongings when he discovered a small leather pouch hidden in the back of her closet containing what appeared to be a random assortment of coins from the 1940s and 1950s, including several rolls of wheat pennies that his mother had apparently set aside decades earlier and then forgotten about. The postal worker, who had a casual interest in coins and had watched a few YouTube videos about valuable pennies, decided to open the rolls and examine them carefully, and when he came across a 1952 D penny that appeared to have doubling on the date and Lincoln's profile, he initially thought he might have found a double die worth perhaps a few $100s. He sent photographs to a professional numismatic authentication service, and they immediately contacted him by phone, not a typical email response, to inform him that based on the photographs, his coin appeared to be an authentic 1952 D double die obverse, and they strongly recommended he send it in for formal certification and grading. The coin was ultimately graded MS-64 red, and despite being 1 or 2 grade levels below the absolute finest known examples, it sold at auction for $1.9 million, instantly transforming this retired postal worker's financial situation and allowing him to help his children with down payments on homes, establish college funds for his grandchildren, and donate a substantial sum to his local church. In another case that made headlines in numismatic publications, an estate sale company in Texas was conducting an auction of a deceased veteran's property when they found an old cigar box filled with coins and military medals in the garage, and rather than simply including it as a miscellaneous lot, the estate company owner, who happened to have some knowledge of coins, took the time to examine the contents carefully and discovered a 1952 D penny struck approximately 40% off-center, showing only about 60% of Lincoln's profile and part of the date, with the rest of the design missing entirely from the planchet. Off-center errors of this magnitude, where the coin is still essentially round but the strike is dramatically misaligned, are highly sought after by error collectors, and when this particular specimen was graded MS63 by NGC, it achieved a final auction price of $847,000, far exceeding the estate company's wildest expectations and providing a substantial windfall for the veteran's heirs who had no idea such value was hiding in their grandfather's old cigar box. Professional grading services like PCGS, Professional Coin Grading Service, and NGC, Numismatic Guarantee Corporation, employ teams of expert numismatists who use sophisticated equipment including high-powered microscopes, X-ray fluorescence analyzers, and comparison databases containing images of thousands of authenticated errors to determine whether a coin is genuine and what grade it deserves based on its condition. When you submit a coin for grading, these experts examine every millimeter of the surface looking for signs of artificial wear, chemical treatments, physical alterations, or any other indication that the coin isn't exactly what it appears to be, and they also compare the error characteristics against known authentic examples to ensure that the doubling, off-center strike, or wrong planchet characteristics match the forensic fingerprint of genuine mint errors rather than post-mint alterations. If your coin is authenticated as genuine and assigned a numerical grade on the Sheldon scale from 1 to 70, with higher numbers indicating better condition, it's then encapsulated in a tamper-evident plastic holder with a label detailing the date, mint mark, variety, and grade, and this slab coin can then be bought, sold, and traded with confidence because the authentication and grading have been performed by trusted third-party experts rather than by the buyer or seller who have vested interests in the outcome. The market dynamics for rare 1952 wheat pennies have evolved dramatically over the past 2 decades, transforming from a niche collecting interest pursued primarily by dedicated numismatists into a serious alternative investment market where wealthy individuals, family offices, and even some institutional investors allocate portions of their portfolios to rare coins as a hedge against inflation, currency devaluation, and stock market volatility. This influx of serious money into the rare coin market has driven prices for top-tier rarities to levels that would have seemed absolutely insane to collectors from earlier generations. I'm talking about coins that sold for $50,000 or $100,000 in the 1990s now bringing $2 million or $5 million at auction, representing appreciation rates that dwarf most traditional investments and make rare coins one of the best-performing alternative asset classes of the past 25 years. What's particularly interesting about the 1952 wheat penny market specifically is that it's characterized by what economists call extreme price stratification, where the finest known examples, coins graded MS67, MS68, or higher with spectacular eye appeal and no significant flaws, command exponentially higher prices than coins just 1 or 2 grade levels lower. So while a 1952 double die in MS64 condition might sell for $1 million to $2 million, an MS67 example of the exact same variety might bring $10 million to $15 million, and a hypothetical MS68 or MS69 example would likely shatter all previous records and could potentially exceed $50 million if multiple wealthy bidders competed against each other in an auction environment. If you're serious about searching for valuable 1952 wheat pennies, you need to develop a systematic approach rather than just randomly looking through coins and hoping to get lucky, because while luck certainly plays a role in major discoveries, knowledge and persistence are far more important factors in long-term success. Start by acquiring at least a 10x jewelless loupe or a digital microscope that can magnify coins at 30x to 60x, because many of the most valuable varieties require magnification to identify properly, you simply cannot see the fine details of double dyes, repunched mint marks, or die cracks with the naked eye. And attempting to search for these varieties without proper magnification tools is like trying to find a specific book in a library while blindfolded. Next, educate yourself thoroughly about what the various error types actually look like by studying high-quality photographs of authenticated examples, reading detailed descriptions in specialized numismatic references like the Cherry Picker's Guide to Rare Die Varieties or the PCGS Coin Facts website, and joining online communities of error collectors where experienced members generously share their knowledge and help beginners learn to distinguish genuine errors from damage, wear, or post. Mint alterations. When you're actually examining 1952 AD pennies, work in a well-lit area with good lighting that allows you to see the coin's surface clearly without glare or shadows obscuring important details, and handle coins by their edges to avoid leaving fingerprints or skin oils on the surfaces, because even on common coins, proper handling is a good habit to develop, and on potentially valuable specimens, careless handling can reduce grade and value significantly. The psychology of the rare coin market is fascinating and worth understanding if you want to comprehend why certain 1952 AD pennies command such extraordinary prices while billions of other pennies from the same year are essentially worthless. At its core, the market is driven by a powerful combination of scarcity, historical significance, aesthetic appeal, and what behavioral economists call winner's curse, where competitive bidders in auction environments become emotionally invested in winning a particular lot and may bid beyond what rational financial analysis would suggest is prudent. When a truly exceptional 1952 D-era penny comes to market, especially one that represents the finest known example of a particular variety or one with impeccable provenance traced back to a documented mint source, wealthy collectors view it not just as a financial investment but as a trophy acquisition that demonstrates their connoisseurship, their resources, and their position within the elite hierarchy of serious numismatists, and this psychological dynamic can push prices to seemingly irrational levels where a coin sells for tens of millions of dollars despite having no functional utility beyond sitting in a protective holder and being occasionally admired. Yet from another perspective, these prices aren't irrational at all when you consider that fine art regularly sells for $50 million, $100 million, or even $200 million at major auction houses, and rare coins offer several advantages over paintings or sculptures. They're highly portable, virtually indestructible if properly stored, require minimal insurance and security compared to large artworks, have well-established authentication and grading standards that reduce fraud risk, and exist in a deep and liquid market where finding buyers for exceptional pieces is generally not difficult when an owner decides to sell. Let me address a question that I know many viewers are wondering about. What are the realistic chances that you personally will find a 1952 D wheat penny worth millions of dollars? The honest answer is that the odds are extremely low. We're talking about probabilities comparable to winning a significant lottery prize. But the crucial difference is that searching for rare coins costs you essentially nothing beyond time and perhaps a small investment in basic equipment like a magnifying glass, whereas playing the lottery costs money with every ticket and offers no possibility of partial wins or consolation prizes. When you search through wheat pennies, even if you don't find an $88 million treasure, you might very well find coins worth $50, $100, $500, or even several $1,000s, and these smaller discoveries can add up significantly over time if you're persistent and systematic in your approach. Moreover, the process of searching for rare coins is genuinely enjoyable for many people. It combines elements of treasure hunting, historical research, and detective work that make it engaging as a hobby even if you never find a major rarity. And unlike passive entertainment like watching television or scrolling through social media, coin searching is an active pursuit that teaches you about history, develops your observation skills, and occasionally provides substantial financial rewards. I personally know several collectors who started searching through pennies as a casual hobby, found one or two valuable varieties that sold for $10,000 to $50,000, and then used those proceeds to fund more serious collecting efforts, purchase better equipment, and eventually build portfolios of rare coins worth hundreds of thousands or even millions of dollars. These success stories prove that major finds are possible and that ordinary people without special connections or insider knowledge can achieve remarkable results through persistence, education, and careful observation. The future outlook for the 1952 wheat penny market remains exceptionally strong based on several converging trends that numismatic experts and market analysts have identified. First, the supply of high-grade error coins is essentially fixed and may actually be declining slightly as some specimens are lost, damaged, or permanently removed from the market by collectors who have no intention of ever selling, while demand continues to grow as new collectors enter the market and existing collectors compete to upgrade their holdings, creating fundamental supply-demand dynamics that favor continued price appreciation. Second, broader macroeconomic trends including persistent inflation, concerns about fiat currency stability, and the search for alternative investments that aren't correlated with stock and bond markets are driving wealthy individuals and institutions to diversify into tangible assets like rare coins, fine art, classic cars, and other collectibles that have historically maintained or increased their value during periods of economic uncertainty. Third, generational wealth transfer is creating new demand as baby boomers pass estates to their children and grandchildren, and in many cases these younger inheritors are liquidating coin collections to raise cash, providing buying opportunities for serious collectors while simultaneously raising awareness about rare coins' investment potential among demographics that might not have previously considered numismatics as a legitimate asset class. Fourth, technological advances including better authentication methods, online marketplaces that connect buyers and sellers globally, and digital imaging that allows detailed examination of coins without physical handling are all making the rare coin market more accessible, more transparent, and more efficient, which generally benefits sellers by expanding the potential buyer pool and helps drive prices higher for exceptional pieces. Before I conclude this exploration of the 1952 wheat penny, I want to emphasize one final time that the $88 million record price represents an absolute outlier, the rarest of the rare, the finest of the fine, a perfect storm of multiple desirable characteristics in a single coin, but that shouldn't discourage you from searching because thousands of 1952 pennies worth $1,000, $10,000, $100,000, or even $1 million are still out there waiting to be discovered in old collections, estate sales, antique shops, and even circulation if you're incredibly lucky. The key is to approach your search with realistic expectations, solid knowledge about what makes coins valuable, proper equipment to identify varieties accurately, and most importantly, the persistence to keep looking even when you don't find anything significant in the first 100 or 1,000 coins you examine, because in the world of rare coin collecting, major discoveries often come to those who refuse to give up and who maintain their enthusiasm and attention to detail through long periods when nothing exciting turns up. Check every 1952 penny you encounter. Invest time in learning about the major varieties and errors. Join online communities where you can ask questions and share your finds with experienced collectors who can help you identify potentially valuable specimens. And always remember that the next coin you examine could be the one that changes everything. the discovery that transforms an ordinary day into an extraordinary adventure and proves that genuine treasures still exist in the world, hidden in plain sight, waiting for someone knowledgeable and persistent enough to recognize their value and claim the rewards that come with discovering a piece of numismatic history that has eluded countless others before you. And with that knowledge and determination, you are now equipped to begin your own journey into the fascinating world of rare wheat pennies, where patience, education, and careful observation can lead to discoveries that most people would consider impossible. So get out there. Start searching, and who knows, maybe you'll be the next person to make headlines with an extraordinary 1952 wheat penny discovery that captures the imagination of collectors worldwide and secures your place in numismatic history.